Hey guys, welcome back to Burst Review. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen the news that yesterday they officially banned bumpfire stocks. And if you look at the wording of the legislation that was passed, it's awful. It shows a clear, total lack of understanding of what a bumpfire stock is, and it muddies the definition of the post-68 Gun Control Act definition of a machine gun to kind of sort of include the bumpfire stock, which makes zero sense. So I'm going to go into that here in a second, but first I'm going to give you a demonstration of the difference between a semi-automatic carbine, a bumpfire stock, and then eventually an actual de facto machine gun. So this is an SGL-21. It is an AKM clone that was built from a Sega carbine. It is semi-automatic only. It is wearing standard furniture. There's nothing special about this gun at all. This is my personal rifle, and it's seen somewhere in the tune of about, I don't know, 10 to 15,000 rounds. Anyway, this is a Magpul Generation 2 P-Mag. Let's go fire a few rounds through here of this 123 grain full metal jacket ammunition I purchased from Wolf. That's 4 shots, and that would be 5. We are clear. All right, seems pretty simple. One pull of the trigger equals 1 cartridge fired. So this is a stamped AKM clone made by DDI. It's one of their older ones. I believe it's like serial number 5 or something. And it is wearing one of these now illegal bumpfire stocks. Now, we have 90 days to turn them in, so no, I'm not self-incriminating, but I want to show you something. So, magazine's locked into place. Gun is charged. What happens when I pull the trigger on a bumpfire stock? Oh, it just fired once. Okay, well, it's because it's not set in the bumpfire mode, but surely the government isn't so foolish, short-sighted, boneheaded, and stupid as to declare something that is truly not a machine gun into a machine gun, right? Well, this is how a bumpfire stock works. Every time I pull the trigger, I have to pull forward, and my support arm is what's resetting the trigger, right? So let's see how that works. Now that seems like a machine gun, right? And to the average idiot, it is a machine gun. The problem is, it's not actually a machine gun. It doesn't meet the legal or the literal definitions of a machine gun. Let's clear this. Let's head down range a little bit further, and I'm going to show you guys just what I'm talking about. All right, so I've got here that same AK we just bump fired, right? And adjacent to it, you couldn't see before, this is an M16A1 circa 1969. This is an actual machine gun, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means that if I hold the trigger down, and it is clear, we'll check again. If I hold the trigger down, did you hear that? No, you didn't hear anything because the hammer fell with the action because I was holding the trigger down. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's take a look. So first we'll put this guy aside, and to make sure that I'm not doing anything funky or lying about the capacity, this is a WBP. It is a Radom magazine, Polish AK made of polycarbonate. It is a translucent AK magazine. It is loaded. It's either 28 or 29 rounds right now, I don't remember. So we've got the bumpfire stock, and as you can see, I'm turning the knob on the bottom to the bumpfire setting. So now the stock and the pistol grip move as a single unit, okay? Awesome. All right, so we're gonna put the magazine in, charge the weapon, and we're gonna put it here on this Lehman bag rest with the bag jack attached to it. If I can get this strap clear. All right, so you can see it is currently in that setting, right? Now, here's what I mean about 1 pull of the trigger equals 1 shot. This is my left hand, right? That's funny, I'm holding the trigger down and nothing's happening. I'll try again, maybe I just messed it up. Nope. It's because without that forward pulling with my left hand, the bumpfire stock doesn't do anything, right? Now if I hold this and I pull forward on the magazine, I can get it to double, maybe triple, but that's not a machine gun because the legal and literal definition of a machine gun is a gun that fires in continuous operation with 1 pull of the trigger. So 1 pull of the trigger equals multiple shots. So to demonstrate this is a Lancer L5 Warfighter magazine. I picked the clear, translucent white one. This is that M16 we referenced before. Secure, charged it, it's on safe. Again, here's the difference between a bump fire stock and an actual machine gun. This is my support hand. I am not touching this firearm at all with anything but my right hand. I'm going to hold the trigger down for a few seconds, then let go. Now, notice anything different? That was a mechanical device that, without any assistance, allowed for the continuous operation of the firearm. Now look, this isn't just about the bump fire stock, right? Yes, I own one of these. I've probably used it 3 times ever, and I've had it for years. It has nothing to do with the bump fire stock. It has to do with the precedent that it sets and what that could do to American gun rights over the next, well, until the end of the Republic, to be honest. The precedent that this sets is that anything like a bump fire stock that increases the rate of fire of a semi-automatic weapon could then be construed, especially by people who hate the Second Amendment, who fear an armed populace, could then construe to being a quote-unquote machine gun. Now that includes things like lighter triggers, potentially higher capacity magazines, belt loops on pants, guys like Jerry McCulloch with his finger. Yeah, so where does it end? Now I'm sure some of you are saying, that's crazy, they would never do that. I can trust so and so. You can't, that's the thing. Just because the politicians we know today might not, and I use might very loosely, might not see this to its end game and might not abuse their power on it, does not mean that 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, that the next generation of politicians aren't going to run the Second Amendment into the dirt. Because before we know it, we'll be restricted to nothing but bolt action, lever action 22s, then black powder, then archery, and after that, hell, maybe pointy sticks. I mean, look at London, right? You have to have a driver's license to get a butter knife. So, last but not least, I did write a full article on this and the ramifications of it over at Firearm News. Now, before I leave you guys, I want you to think about something for a second. We as gun owners need to stop assuming people of a certain political leaning are on our side. Does that mean that, oh man, you should have voted for Hillary, you'd be so much better? No, of course not. Don't be a fool. What it does mean is that just because we have a Republican in office doesn't mean we can rest on our laurels and expect the Second Amendment and our gun rights to be protected. So that means voting often, calling your congressman, and if you own a bump fire stock, go over to bumpstockcase.com, where the guys from the Firearms Policy Coalition have set up a website for people to jump in on a class action lawsuit that they filed only hours after the announcement was made official. Now, this announcement didn't come out of nowhere. If any of you guys were following before, on the 5th, a leaked memo from the U.S. Department of Justice heavily suggested that this was going to be law. And earlier this year, Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn sat down with President Trump, Dianne Feinstein, and several other lawmakers at a bipartisan televised conference, and in reference to the Fix NICS, as they called it, or Fix NICS, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, he stated something along the lines of they wanted to do something about the bump fire stocks. This was John Cornyn, and Trump replied something along the lines of, well, we can do it with executive order. We'll take care of those bump fire stocks soon enough. So yeah, we knew this was coming, but it still doesn't make it hurt any less, to be honest. You would expect the candidate endorsed by the NRA to not try to backstab our Second Amendment rights, to capitulate for literally nothing. And that's something that we as gun owners have been doing for far too long. Basically, since the inception and creation of gun control in general, we have systematically given up our rights for nothing. They talk about, we want compromise. Why won't you guys compromise? We have never been offered anything in exchange for giving up our gun rights. It has always been, think of the children. What about those poor innocent people? Okay? What are you going to give me in exchange for me capitulating? The answer is pretty much always nothing. Now, if Democrats actually wanted real change and wanted to do anything about this, they would probably say, you know what, we'll take short-barrel rifles off the table. Those are no longer NFA items. Give up those bump fire stocks. Or, hey, we'll reopen the NFA registry and guys can have post machine guns, but they'll have to pay $500, something. Ideally, we'd give up nothing. We would be able to say, you know what? Screw the NFA. It's de facto absolved right now. But it's not going to happen. And I'm not saying we should go in looking to give up any of our gun rights, but I am saying that we cannot, as a group of individuals, continue to capitulate at every single stage. People who are against the Second Amendment, or people who are just neutral, or God, even worse, centrists, will say, well, gun owners never want to make any compromise. And we know the reality of the situation is we've never been offered anything. And as if seeing the Republican president of the United States turn on gun rights wasn't weird enough, how about the fact that last year, Senator Dianne Feinstein, the person who basically salivates over an assault weapons ban or a complete and de facto ban of privately owned or civilian-owned firearms, tweeted, "The ATF lacks the authority under the law to ban bump fire stocks, period. Legislation is the only answer and Congress shouldn't pass the buck." What fucking universe do I live in where a Democratic senator from California makes more sense than the Republican president of the United States? I don't know what the hell's going on. And I know some people are saying, no, it's 5D underwater chess. I don't care what the hell his endgame is. You don't screw with the Second Amendment because it protects the rest of our rights. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and go over to Firearm News here in the next few minutes and check out my full article explaining all the ramifications and learn about the efforts by the Firearms Policy Coalition to combat this unconstitutional and unjust law from becoming just that. Law. Thanks, guys.